Hey everyone, welcome to Enjoy the Psalm with Bewindi. I hope that you're having a wonderful day and that you had a wonderful day, depending on what time you are watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed Psalm 104 and 103. I know Psalm 104 was a little bit lengthy. There are some of those psalms that are kind of long, but good anyway. So I'm going to jump in to another psalm of Thanksgiving, and this one's a little bit long, but just hang tight with me. Psalm 105. Give thanks to the Lord and proclaim his greatness. Let the whole world know what he has done. Sing to him, yes, sing his praises. Tell everyone about his wonderful deeds. Exalt in his holy name. Rejoice, you who worship the Lord. Search for the Lord and for his strength. Continually seek him. Remember, that's a key word, remember. As a matter of fact, one of my podcasts, if you haven't checked out the podcast, Empowered to Empower You podcast, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, um, Podbean. It's on like 7 platforms, but it's meant to glorify God. I talk a lot about things, a lot of things, all things Jesus Christ and mental health. So, one of my podcasts was just on remember, because sometimes we just need to take a moment and remember. We get so boggled down with what's going on in the now, and we get easily tied up with our emotions, and because things look stressful and overwhelming, we tend to forget, split like quickly, like as if we haven't been protected before, or as if God hasn't provided for us before. But if we just take a moment to remember, like, God, like, you've provided for me before, like you have healed me before, like you have protected me before, you have delivered me before, you saved my life before. Like, when we take time to remember his wonders and the miracles that he has performed, we then shift into, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much that I'm not where I used to be. Thank you so much that I'm not the woman that I was. And that's a personal testimony for myself. I am not who I was 6 years ago. I'm not who I was 2 years ago or 1 year ago, right? And so it says, remember the wonders he has performed, his miracles, and the rulings that he has given. You children of his servant Abraham, you descendants of Jacob, has chosen ones. He is the Lord our God. His justice is seen throughout the land. He always stands by his covenant. I love that, because God is a covenant keeping God. People may let you down. Friends may let you down. If I depended on my friends to make me feel whole and encouraged all the time, I would be disappointed. But I know with God, he is a covenant keeping God. It says he always stands by his covenant. He always stands by his covenant. Um, the commitment he made to 1,000 generations. This is a covenant he made with Abraham, and the oath he swore to Isaac. He confirmed it to Jacob as a decree, and to the people of Israel as a never-ending covenant. I will give you the land of Canaan as your special possession. He said this when they were few in number, a little tiny group of strangers in Canaan. They wandered from nation to nation, from one kingdom to another, yet he did not let anyone oppress them. He warned the kings on their behalf. Do not touch my anointed, neither hurt my prophets, do my prophets no harm, he said. He called for a famine in the land of Canaan, cutting off its food supply. Then he sent someone to Egypt ahead of them, Joseph, who was a sole slave. They bruised his feet with fetters and placed his neck in an iron collar. Until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. You have to read the story, it's so good. Then Pharaoh sent for him and set him free. The ruler of the nation opened his prison door. Joseph was put in charge of all the king's household. He became the ruler over all the king's possession. He could instruct the king's aides as he pleased and teach the king's advisors. Then Israel arrived in Egypt. Jacob lived as a foreigner in the land of Ham, and the Lord multiplied the people of Israel until they became too mighty for their enemies. Then he turned the Egyptians against the Israelites. They plotted against the Lord's servants. But the Lord sent his servant Moses. So God is talking about the psalmist is talking about all these examples of how God displayed his power. He was their deliverer. All these examples of people that God sent to deliver and to aid the Israelites. So God sent his servant Moses along with Aaron, whom he had chosen. They performed miraculous signs among the Egyptians and wonders in the land of Ham. The Lord blanketed Egypt in darkness, for they had defied his commands to let his people go. He turned the water into blood. You have to read the story. It is a great story in Exodus. He poisoned all their fish. Then frogs overran the land, even invaded the king's bedrooms. Ooh, can you imagine frogs all over your bedroom? When the Lord spoke, flies descended on the Egyptians, gnats swarmed across the Egypt. He sent them hail instead of rain, and lightning flashed over the land. He ruined their grapevines and fig trees and shattered all the trees. He spoke, the hordes of locusts came, young locusts beyond number. They ate up everything green in the land, destroying all the crops. So basically, he's going over all the plagues that God sent over the Egyptians because they would not let his people go. It's a terrible thing to fall in the hands of the Lord. He's still good. He's still great. He's still merciful. The Lord brought his people out of Egypt, loaded. Oh, I'm sorry. One more plague. So he killed the oldest son in each Egyptian home, the pride and joy of each family. So that was the last plague. The Lord brought his people out of Egypt, loaded them. They left richer than they ever were. And not one of the tribes of Israel ever even stumbled. So can you imagine? They walked in the wilderness 40 years. Now, God could have, this is the beautiful thing. I love this story. God could have, and I'm watching the time because this cannot be over 10 minutes. God could have given them a shortcut to the promised land. But he took them around the long way because he knew what was in their hearts. He knew that if he gave them a shortcut, they would be like, you know what? If they face adversity, they'll be like, I'm done. We need to go back to Egypt, even if they were being beaten and in slavery. But he took them, and then the whole 40 years in the wilderness, they didn't smell. Their feet did not blister. Like they were just kept. That's amazing. Egypt was glad when they were gone, for they feared them greatly. The Lord spread a cloud over them as a covering, gave them a great fire to lighten the darkness. They asked for meat, and he sent them quail. He satisfied their hunger with manna, bread from heaven. He split open a rock, and water gushed out to form a river through the dry wasteland. For he remembered his sacred promise to his servant Abraham. So he brought his people out of Egypt with joy, his chosen ones with rejoicing. He gave his people the lands of pagan nations, and they harvested crops that people had planted. All this happened so that they would follow his decrees and obey his instructions. Praise the Lord. I like how he ended that psalm with praise the Lord. It all goes back to our obedience. Our obedience. Obedience is better than what? You guessed it, sacrifice. This was Psalm 105. I know it was long enough, and I'm just going to wait till tomorrow to give you Psalm 106. I hope this has encouraged your heart. Until tomorrow, this is Bewindi. Talk to you soon. Have a great evening.